and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie, and I am so excited for today to actually be the launch of something very significant. That CEO of KD Ventures, Karl Krummenacher, is here to share with us. This is something, y'all, that nobody has heard about other than a very trusted circle. And so what we're talking about tonight is how much community has been shifting, how much collaboration has changed over the last, multiple decades. And we're kind of at this pinnacle of it tipping over and it completely toppling, not just because of what AI is currently doing, but we're seeing the problems sparking up. I guess that's a way to say it. It's sparking and it's going up. And we're seeing just the ways in which people are more hungry than ever before for connection, but we're working with a broken model. And Karl has the fix to that. So Karl, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited.
I am looking forward to this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for 2 months since we met at another event, you and I.
I know.
And we got involved in a deep conversation that I cherished. I actually went home and shared that with my wife, and it's great to spend time with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here, Karl. You have advised so many executives, worked in so many businesses, and you personally, before we even get to kind of the solution that you're stumbling upon, and not even stumbling upon, you've been working on this for 12 months, and you've got the patent, and you're moving into launch mode now. But over the last 10, 20, 30 years, you've led just a very, very interesting entrepreneurial journey. And that was really captivating me. And I'd love for you to just give a little bit of backstory over the risk that you took a couple of years ago that really catapulted your life as you know it.
Wow, what a story. How much time you got? Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, Christine. And I think I got that from my dad. I grew up in the back of his camera store. And so weekends, summers, I would go into a little camera shop and I got to watch my dad make money by selling things that he would buy and learn a little bit about how the real world works. And I got to meet a lot of different people too, interesting people. And throughout my life, I've just been exposed to, it seems like, unfolding opportunities. And I think that's what a lot of people say is the definition of an entrepreneur. They see things unfold in front of them. And so I was blessed. I've had a variety of opportunities throughout my life. I've been the CEO, COO, CMO, president of publicly and privately held companies, had a couple of companies that I've owned or played major roles in that have made it to the Inc. fastest growing list 3 times now, been on that list. And I feel like I've just been blessed by God. I'm always in the right place at the right time. I can't take all the credit. In fact, I wouldn't give myself any of it, except for being open to the possibility. Probably is the thing I'll take the most credit for. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and it culminated recently. The biggest point of inflection recently, which I think what you're referring to, was that I had spent about 8 years total in a mastermind community, more than a mastermind, a large group organization, a collaborative by name. And it was the love of my life. I got to support health professionals. I got to see the impact of their work. I got to watch entrepreneurs who really made an impact by changing lives, which was great. It wasn't for the money as much, although they like making money for sure. But, help entrepreneurs succeed, in this case, health entrepreneurs. And it was kind of weird because I went to school to become a doctor myself. And I actually washed out of St. Louis University first year. I was like, not for me. And I was, I had good academic grades in high school, but the whole pursuit of that degree just didn't feel aligned for me. And so anyway, long story short, while I was at that organization thinking I'm going to end my career there, and this is where I'm going to just kind of ride off into the sunset, doing what I love with people I love, I got seduced. I got seduced by a bright, shiny object. And I got recruited hard. And it was really interesting because it was, for me, a full circle moment. I had, as my career got started and I got out of that camera store, I found myself actually working in a technology incubator. It was called the St. Louis Technology Center. And a couple of guys, we were all just developing software to help connect, if you remember all the way back, well, you won't, you're too young, but I remember when the first PCs came out. And when the first PCs came out, they were competing for desktop space, what were terminals at the time,
Mm.
just a dumb CRT. It was a keyboard and a screen. And whatever you typed went all the way down to a mainframe computer in the basement somewhere and came back to your terminal. And that's how you use computers, or mainframes connected to terminals. And as PCs came around, they still needed to connect in those larger corporations with the larger corporate data systems, but there wasn't any way to do that. And we wrote software that did that, that turned a PC from just acting like a dumb terminal. There was software that would emulate a terminal if you wanted to connect, to actually being able to exchange documents of different formats. So back in the day, before there was just Word and Google Docs, there were 26 word processors, and people couldn't exchange them. So we wrote software that if you're working on your PC and you sent a document off to someone across the campus and they were working on a VAX mainframe computer, or somebody else was using WordStar or WIPS or WordPerfect or DisplayWrite, it would translate it on the fly. So you always could work and collaborate on documents. Digital Equipment Corporation bought us, and that was my first exit before I was 30.
Wow.
And so, but that was all because I started in a technology center. I was incubated. I was surrounded by other people like me who were actually building their technology businesses. And you might have called that my first informal kind of introduction to a mastermind at the time. We had shared resources. The technology center provided us with, access to accounting, senior level guidance. People from SCORE, which is a SBA program of retired executives, guys like me now, the gray-haired old guys that could give you some sage wisdom. And it was really amazing. And so here I am 3 years ago, 3.5 now, years ago, and somebody said, Karl, I've seen you work. I've watched your career. We want you to come run this business for us. And it was essentially a tech incubator, a venture studio for SaaS companies. And this gentleman had a big, big, big vision, really big vision. It was fascinating. And it sounded so good. You're going to work half as much. You're going to make twice as much. You're going to, in your career where you started your career, which was in a technology group, and around all those younger, energetic people that could just benefit from your wisdom. And I thought, my goodness, this would be fun. Like, it would be great. And unfortunately, not everything that's shiny is gold. And it wasn't just a good fit for us. We didn't pair off well. I couldn't go back and do what I was doing, which was running a mastermind and a coaching system for health entrepreneurs. So I found myself 60, out of work, with no source of income. So I did what any smart senior citizen that age would do. And my wife and I sold actually everything we owned, gave up all of our assets, liquidated our retirement, gave it all away to charity except for $10,000, a horse, a trailer, a truck to pull it, 2 laptops, 2 bags of luggage each. And we moved from our beautiful home in La Costa, California, across the country to Colorado. My son was accepted into CU Boulder, and he wanted to do physics there. And we figured, if we're going to do crazy stuff like that, we should at least get the cost of tuition down by being in state by the second year. So we left California for Colorado and a new life, and thought that, you know what, we're going to videotape this little adventure and prove that anybody at any age in any economy, regardless of inflation or interest rates or direction or your current situation, could restart and build the life you love. We're going to be vloggers. These 2 old folks at 60 years old. We're going to start vlogging. That'll just be awesome. And so we bought the handy cams on the credit cards and put our phones on it. And we've got great footage across the Western United States, but not so much of a story. But along the way, I was talking to some mentors, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. And a good friend and a mentor of mine said, Karl, you've done a thing or two. Like, you kind of know a thing or two. So you should just consider being an advisor. And there was a series of fun little connecting moments, where Providence seemed to move, and we got confidence to do that. And within 90 days, I was doing a advisory, C-level advisory, sort of a consulting for equity model, where I would get to know a company that would pay me a fee to have a call with them a week. and usually about 1 hour a week, in addition to a getting started kind of half day. We'd map out a plan. I'd make the price of my services completely irrelevant. Like I would make my clients or save them the whole cost of my engagement within the first month or two. And if I didn't, I told them I'd give them all their money back. So I wanted to make money not the issue. And it's actually easier to do than you think. Like if I were to share some stories about the nature of the work that you wind up doing and how easy that really is, if you're
Yeah.
working with the right companies, you know how to lean into it. It's remarkable the number of businesses where the owner can't see the picture because they're in the frame, as Mary Morrissey likes to say.
Mm,
And so, yeah, within 90 days, I had 5 clients and making over $500,000 a year, working less than 6 hours a week because I built a bunch of agentic tools and systems to do the heavy lifting, to be the EA I didn't have, to be the research analyst I didn't have, to write the reports I didn't want to write, to do the work that would make that advisory valuable to my
mhm.
clients. And yeah, that was it 3 years ago. We started a little company called Katie Ventures in 2023. And today, Katie Ventures has 5 companies, a portfolio value conservatively over 8 figures. And we've earned multiple 7 figures in fees and distributions from companies we've earned equity in by moving the needle for them.
Wow. Karl, what a story. I mean, the fact that you sold everything at 60 years old, to your point, you're like, we're just going to go bigger or go home.
Yeah, pretty much
Was
it.
that always part of your makeup, your personality? Have you always kind of had that? I mean, that feels, if I was to put a word to it, it's audacious in my mind.
Mm.
Very, very audacious. And has that always been a part of your temperament?
No.
Mm,
In fact, I would say it was opposite, oddly enough. I mean, I've taken risks before. I grew up in a conservative Catholic home in a little North County, St. Louis area. It was rural farmland. And, we were taught to work hard and to be conservative and save everything. And I did that growing up, mostly. Now, I was creative. I'd see an opportunity and I would take it, but I wouldn't consider myself a risk taker or a gunslinger. At least in my mind, it didn't seem risky whenever I embarked on something. I'd pretty much, is there a market for that? Can we do it? Is it achievable? And then I just took action. My dad taught me something when I was young. And he said, look, if you want to always be secure, here's my dad's advice. He said, if you want to pretty much guarantee that you'll always have a paycheck and you'll do well, you just need to get up an hour early, show up an hour early, stay an hour late. And if you outwork the competition, you'll never worry for food or taking care of yourself. I'm like, really?
hmm.
That's it? And he said, pretty much. I'm like, I'm in. I can do that. Like extra hour here, extra hour there. I'm in. I can do that. And so, my work ethic was hustle and grind. And I worked incredibly hard for many years. At 26, with that first software company, we were about to either go big or go home. We were selling our company to Digital Equipment Corporation, close to getting a deal for that.
Hmm.
And I went into atrial fib. That atrial fib is that arrhythmia where they put the paddles on your chest and
Oh, yes.
zap you back. And now, to be fair, working crazy hours, I wasn't the most health conscious guy at 26. I was living off of 2-liter bottles of Dr. Pepper and bags of Doritos, which turns out not good for your heart. Who would have?
How weird.
Yeah, you just wouldn't have figured.
No.
And so, I mean, I paid the price. I worked really hard, but when this came around to do this, so I'll add a layer to this, which will give you some color. After that first exit, I didn't need to work. I could just do things for fun. And I asked a buddy, what are you doing for fun these days? And he sent me a link to a website, and it was an indoor karting center. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Electric go-karts running inside an air-conditioned building, racing around a track. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I literally jumped a plane within a week to California to go see it. I'm like, I want one. I want to do this business. This would be fun. And at that point, that was audacious because I figured, look, I had a business where I transferred home movies to videotape. I was the first guy to build machines to do that
Wow.
privately. It was successful. I ran my dad's camera store. It was successful. I added a 1-hour photo. It was successful. I added a video department. It was successful. Like, this business stuff is pretty easy. You just got to do what the clients want. And so I saw the track and said, I want one. And I built the largest indoor racing center in North America. It's called Grand Prix Speedways. It was in the first ever Sam's Club in St. Louis. And it happened, we came out of the ground right before the recession in 2012. And the recession hit, and I'd walked into the bank not knowing how commercial loans worked. We had a loan from the bank to buy the building, to rehab the building, and we had some construction overruns, and they were not insignificant, but we were making debt service. We were paying our loans, our commercial loans. The business was soft. We weren't getting all the revenue we had planned on getting, because corporations weren't doing team building events when the economy started to contract. It was a discretionary expense. But I had a restaurant operator, and he was going to put a restaurant up in the second floor. He was well known. He did all the sports and celebrity themed restaurants in St. Louis. Everybody knew him. And I called the bank. I said, hey, we want to do this restaurant together, half and half. Can we get a loan? And the bank said, sure, come on in with your financials, or send us your financials. We'll get it all docked up. They called me a week later, said, Karl, we need to talk. Come down to the bank. I went to the bank. They said, listen, hate to do this, but we're calling the note. You owe us $5 million in 90 days. I was flabbergasted. Like, wait, what? What do you mean? I owe you $5 million. And so we were in default because of a required technical, there was some paragraph deep into the document that said we needed to maintain a debt to income ratio. And I had no appreciation for what that meant. I thought, if you pay your bills, you're fine. That's how it is at home, right? On a mortgage. And so they called the note and they forced me into bankruptcy. They sold the track, because what I learned was, if you have a loan that's considered at risk by the bank, whatever their Fed fund ratio, which I think is like 10-1, is, they lose in their ability to get more money from the Fed that they can lend to others. So if you have, in our case, a $5 million loan at risk, it reduced their borrowing capacity from the Fed by $50 million. And a nominal interest rate on $50 million, that adds up. They would rather take a loss on the building and get out of it and even be short than to have that lost capacity. So anyway, that was my first wipeout. I just shared that because we went bankrupt. My wife and I wound up with nothing. Literally forced out of our home. It was really a very, very dark, difficult time. I couldn't find work at the time. People had seen our building on the cover of the Yellow Pages, if you remember when those existed, the phone books. And we were the darling child of St. Louis, and people would either say, hey, Karl, don't worry, you'll bounce back. You're a little hot right now. We can't really hire you at the higher level. And if I went for lower end jobs, they'd say, what? You're the guy that did Grand Prix Speedways. You don't want this job. You're going to be gone in a few minutes. So we had nothing. So we had to restart, and we did. And it was difficult, but we earned our way back over the years. So I think that by the time we got to this decision, it was not a big deal. It was just sort of like, it was ego driven, though. I will say it's not a great idea. It wasn't perfectly easy, and there was a lot of ego in it, because I felt like I had something to prove. And the reason, Christine, was I was on radio, I was on TV, I was in the owner's box at the football stadium or the baseball stadium at the beginning of the year, because I was doing cool things in the town I grew up in. And when I went bankrupt, I couldn't show my face. I couldn't bring myself to do anything. In fact, when I started working in the group that took care of health professionals, I told the person I was working with, I'm like, look, I'll support you. We'll do this together. We'll grow this up. And we grew it pretty good. I go, I just don't want to be up on stage. First thing I said is just like, I'm the behind the scenes guy back here. Don't need to see anything. And a couple of people said, Karl, you've been playing small. I mean, recently I had a conversation with somebody that I respect, my first ever person I bought an info product from to learn how to dig myself out of the hole. We got in the hole. I got a credit card early on. The first thing I did was I bought an info product to learn how to sell new products and do things online. And I was having a conversation with my mentor now, who I had looked up to for years, since 2012. And he's like, why do you play small? Like, why are you playing small? So anyway, I was just like, time to go.
At what stage did he say, why are you playing small? Was that right before you sold everything?
No, no, this was actually recently, oddly enough. His comment
Really?
was, yeah, he's like, you're quiet and you almost sit back like you don't have anything to contribute. But Carl, when I have a conversation with you, I think you're amazing. Like, why do you? He just got a vibe from me.
Yeah.
I don't want to go deep into the personal parts of the call, but it really hit me. It's like,
Mhm.
ugh. And so part of that journey,
Well, do you mind going into the personal parts?
well, it depends on how far it goes. We could
All
test
right,
the waters.
let's dip in and we'll see.
Yeah, let's put our toe in the water. Do you have a
When
question? Yeah.
this mentor of yours, this friend of yours, this man that you respect and admire, to effectively be called out by saying, "Why are you playing small?" Was that the first thing he said to you, or was there some preamble to that?
Oh, there was a lot of preamble. So I'll give you two contexts. I have several mentors in my life. I always look to people smarter than me to help me level up. It's important. And so in this particular individual, there's really two. There was one that got me out of the nest. So when the bright shiny object didn't pan out, I went and I paid $25,000 for a half day with somebody I have great respect for and I had friendship with. But this guy's so smart, and just I'm like, I'll pay the price. And I needed to overcome any money mindset issues. Like, to me, paying $25,000 for half a day, probably up until that point, was unthinkable. Like, I would never do it. And it was a casual conversation, but it gave me exactly what I needed. It wasn't a volume of information, it was the exact right information that gave me the confidence to strike out and do that. And so I did. And so that was what kicked me out of the nest, we'll say, and caused me to start the advisory work, which has parlayed into the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, since starting that 3 years ago, I have not been happier, more fulfilled, felt more creative, or had a better time.
Wow.
But so I'm in that,
Mhm.
and connections continue to be made. And I bumped into the individual who I bought my first ever info product from at a little mastermind here in Austin. He was co-speaking with the person who was leading it. I saw him. I'm like, I need to go up and say thank you and give gratitude. And I walked up. I said, listen, I have to introduce myself. My name's Karl. There's no reason you should know who I am. But 15 years ago, when you launched the product to teach people how to build digital products, I bought it. That was the first ever instructional product, info product I ever did, biz up product. And I can credit that with about $30 million worth of
Wow.
growth from that point forward. And I owe it all to you, because if you hadn't created the belief system for me, like, you may not I know you sold a product and you think that's cool, but you did something more because you created a belief system that I didn't have. You opened my eyes to an industry I didn't understand, and you called me to action. If you look at Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand and you go through that, it talks about the importance of the guide, somebody with experience and empathy who calls you to action. And he at that time was the guide, didn't even know it. He didn't know me from Adam, although we had done, like, I paid in full to be able to get the 15-minute direct call with him to have him review my offer. And so, he said thank you. I think he appreciated that. Later, we're sitting at tables together doing masterminding, and I had a occasion or two to give some feedback. And afterwards, he came up. He said, you live here in Austin? I said, yeah. He goes, I would love to get to know you better. And I was just flattered beyond belief. And so we started to connect. He invited me into a high level mastermind that turned out to be all of the people I look up to. So
Wow.
back 15 years ago, the OG, we're talking the big names: Jeff Walker, Eben Pagan, John Asraf, Roland Frazier, Joe Polish. I could just rattle through the whole group. They're all in this elite little group.
Wow.
And I got invited to a seat at the table.
Mm.
And so we were at a local breakout mastermind. 12 of us got together just to do real masterminding and all focus on one problem and get it done, a little over a week ago. And we were walking back from dinner one night, and he just, started asking me some fun questions. And it started with, so Karl, can you communicate to technical people really easily? I thought, that's an interesting question, but yeah, no, I talk tech. I know tech things. And then he said, what about, like, at the executive level or the leadership level? Can you communicate with them really easily too? I go, yeah, I think so. I mean, many of them are peers now. I think, yeah. He goes, so your superpower is sort of like connecting people. You could bridge that gap. I said, actually, it's interesting you would say that, because people have called me a translator before, that I can talk
Hmm.
between the two. And so the conversation unfolded about my family and about um, my work, what I've been doing. And then he looked at me and he said, "You know, you're really weird."
I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either. And he goes, and immediately, Christine, I went to thinking, oh wait, did I do or say something wrong that was off-putting in the group? Are you singling me out because of how I showed up? Because he said, because I've been noticing something about you over the last 3 days. And I immediately went into panic. I
Wow.
talk too much. I'm not listening well. I'm doing something inappropriate. What did I do wrong? Please tell me. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose this group. I love these people. This is amazing. And he goes, "No, Karl, you're really weird in a good way. Like you can talk about Javon's paradox and be in philosophical discussions, and then you could go right down and talk about an API on an MCP server to go high level. I don't even know what MCP is. Like, how do you do that?" And we were doing breakouts, and we would talk about funnels and marketing ideas, and you're as good as anybody in the room. And he looked me straight in the eye, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'll be honest with you, I went in the bathroom afterwards and I cried. Shit, I can't believe I'm saying this. He said, "You know, everybody loves you, right?" I was pushed back. It was like a thud of energy hit me in the chest.
Wow.
And all I could think is, what energy am I giving off that he felt compelled to tell me that? So, yeah, it was, it's more than a toe in the water for me, but
Mm,
it was really an impactful moment.
mm. Uh, the the fears that you stated, do I talk too much? Was I being too big, too loud? I actually made this note. It's so comforting, Karl, to know that it doesn't matter at what point you are in your career or your journey, or how much money is in your bank, or how much money you've invested or given away. Those those fears are still there, and that truth rings just as true. You're so loved. And it's so interesting. This is why I love the Knowing Show, because we talk strategy, but we also talk about the soul of the person who goes and executes on the strategy.
Mhm.
Because for so long, we've over indexed on the intellectual intelligence and not spent enough time cultivating the emotional or the spiritual or the physical. And so it's towards the end of our lives and we're like, wait a second, look at this trail and this wake that I've left behind me. And is it a life that I'm proud of? Truly living. Is this a life I'm proud of? And so just that concept of the rooms that do you know what rooms you want to be in? Are you in those rooms? Are you showing up to the fullest of your human capacity that you possibly can? Like, are you living to every nth of your fingertips, like fully showing up? And then to that point, even in that process, there still may be the fear lurking underneath. And I just really appreciate you sharing that.
There's the fear still lurking underneath. And, a lot of my friends too, guys especially, we don't want to talk about this. Like,
Mhm.
we don't want to talk about this. Stronger guys than me will talk about this. But I was so touched by it, mostly because here's a man that I have tremendous respect for, talking to another man, and calling that out and bringing focus and light to it, and making it what it spoke to me more than anything, and it created a deep awareness for me. And I try to be sensitive this way, but I'm way more now, which is, how much time do we spend pouring into other people when we have the
Mm,
opportunity? Do we actually pour into our team? You can assume they know they're valued. You can tell yourself that you told them yesterday how great they were. But um, I think it was a great lesson for me in the power of those moments and how it can impact anyone, myself as an example. It re-indexed my own behavior. And I think if you were to read my LinkedIn, you look at the people who've worked for me in the past, they say some nice things.
yeah.
I try to be kind, but I still don't think it's enough. And especially now, like, the world's a mess today because I think we're not kind enough to each other. And if there's opportunities to do that, pour into people whenever you get that chance. wherever and whenever you're doing. Because I'll tell you, it makes a difference. I felt it in even years later at 63.
It's so interesting, he's the same person that just recently said, "Hey, you're not basically being big enough." What was his exact phrase to you?
Uh, yeah, it was essentially, he said, what he was describing my mannerisms. He says, I just noticed that when you're in the group, you seem to be withdrawn and pulling back, and you're very kind of guarded in your suggestions. You're like, hey, have you considered, might you try, he
Mm,
goes, you just, Karl, stand up and tell people what you think. You should command the room. Like, don't be arrogant. If you turned into an ass, everybody would tell you. But
right.
he didn't use these words, but it felt like, you're being a shrinking violet, stop it.
Yes.
And I know that I was like, look, I had massive imposter syndrome. I'm sitting at a table with my idols. I have
Mhm.
no reason to be here in my mind. Like, these guys have made collectively a $500 million. How did I get a seat at this table? I don't want to barge in and act like I know anything. And I don't know if that's misguided humility or fear or imposter syndrome. I haven't gone deep. I'm not that guy that processes stuff a lot. I'm like, oh, tell me something better. Got it. Moving on. Doing that from now on kind of guy.
Right.
But yeah, it was a wake up call. And I'm really trying to be conscious with our teams in my
Mhm.
portfolio companies now to make those deposits because of what impact it had.
Karl, do you mind me asking you, what was with your childhood and kind of like with your relationship with your parents? Was your dad gave you the advice of like go in an hour early and stay an hour late, but it doesn't sound like he had an encouragement for you to dream big and to view yourself as something that could do something extraordinary. Is that fair?
It's very perceptive. That's fair.
Yeah, because I remember this. I got called out in a similar way about 4 years ago, and I think that actually was a moment that really changed my life. It was a colleague. We were both working at an event at Amazon, so they were putting on the event production, and I was doing all the comms for Amazon. And it was 4 a.m. You don't sleep when you do these events, and it was 4 a.m. and we met up for a cocktail, just to a nightcap. And he looks at me and he's just like, Christine, when are you going to actually start being the She-Hulk? And I was like, what even is that? Yes. And it was the very first time in my life. And Karl, this was right after my husband had left.
Mhm.
And somebody that I barely knew saw me and said, "You are being too small. When are you going to stop it? When are you going to start stepping into your power?" Because they saw me, and I think that was the first person who really saw me. And I think that there's something now. Granted, maybe our parents did, and maybe they said it to us, but we've gotten numb to it or been kind of dismissed. Having a kind of dismissal.
I know the phrase. For me, I was taught growing up. So I'm just after the Depression era. My family grew up in the Depression era. So I was
Mm,
raised by strict Catholic parents. My dad was German Swiss. My mom was Irish. Here was the phrase: children should be seen and not heard. That
wow.
was the phrase. I remember it. You just brought it back for me.
Oh, chills. And that phrase, that's the silent subconscious program that runs in our head because we all have that program. And it's just okay, maybe I don't even have to go do all this deep soul searching, but I can at least now be aware of it. And now that's the program that I have to, okay, let's pull it out, but what goes in its stead? And so like, man, I've had to undo a lot of programs and I still am. Just the other day, I'm actually a friend of mine. She gave me this, I gave her my book and she gave me her book. And so it's called Stop Self-Sabotage. And it's such a good book. And you've got exercises in it. And I read it this weekend and I found even more programs that I need to undo, specifically around the financials. Like you were talking about the money mindset. And so I just find it interesting that I actually have found that men need other men to come in. Even I was talking to someone the other day and they said that, it's notable to me that I keep finding these men who are 20, 30 years older than me to come in a firm what I'm doing. And then I get to the next level in my career. And then another man comes in and kind of gets me the affirmation. And it's so powerful when, to your point, we start being able to do that for others. And this point of community, Karl, what you're doing and what you're building, I'd love to kind of get into that because, man, you've grown up in masterminds in so many ways. Like you've had these really life-changing moments in masterminds. You've led them that kind of got you out of the bankruptcy. But then also you've been around the table with these idols and these men and women that you've respected so much. And now you're actually coming in with something incredibly disruptive and a completely new way of doing business predicated on this model that actually has really served you. And yet it's become outdated. Can you talk about that?
I can. Yeah, this will be the first time, so I'm trying to. It's completely unrehearsed. We just happened to chat about it. You asked me before we got started, "Is there anything new you're working on?" I'm like, "Well, there is something. I'm not going to announce it officially for another week or so, but
Hmm.
yeah. Well, here, let me just set it up this way.
Okay.
If you go back to the original idea of a mastermind, as most contemporary people know it, it's
Mm.
something that Napoleon Hill coined. And he was really doing it in opposition to what had happened prior to that. Prior to 19, I think 25 or so, a mastermind was the genius in the room. He was the person that could solve any problem. He was the mastermind of that criminal break-in. He was the mastermind of that new industrial renaissance. And Napoleon Hill, after he got done collecting all of the interviews that he did of really wealthy and effective people, said, a mastermind really should be a collection of ordinary men and women. I don't think he said women, but I'll add that. Ordinary men and women who, when they're all focused on one problem for a period of time in one and only one thing, that they can do remarkable things together. And so the idea of a mastermind was born, and then very quickly, I think it changed. And over the years, as we got really into, my contemporary period of time here on the planet, masterminds got back to what it was. It's a guru in the front of the room. It's the person who holds the stage. And to be fair, I'm not slamming masterminds. I think they even still have a purpose, but I think the model's outdated. And I think, if you think about it, the mastermind has been historically the guru in the front, maybe the paid stage for the speakers that come up,
Mhm.
sponsors that pitch to members. You needed this economic engine that would work. So the group might collectively go, "Hey, we want to learn, pick a topic, Facebook ads," and the person who runs the room would go look at people who teach or help people with Facebook ads, and they would invite those people to come and speak on their stages. And usually it could be a pay to play, like, "Hey, you could be a sponsor. I'll let you on the stage. You get to give a presentation of an hour or two, maybe a breakout, mingle with my people,
Yeah.
and then you can sell them what you do." And that person would look for an ROI. And by the way, I sold this very thing. Like, we would help sponsors get a 10-to-1 ROI. We'd vet them. We would carefully make sure that they were good people, that they had a great reputation, that they would give our people what they needed, and they did. But the economics are changing because back then, you know, the real value was the speed of information. If you were in the right room, you found out what was happening before the rest of the world could, and you could start taking
Yes.
action, so you had a competitive advantage, which was speed. But now I can go to any LLM and get any information I need right now in detail to do anything. So speed is no longer the value that it was in a mastermind. That's part A. Having the other thing about masterminds, obviously, is that you can make connections. You can many times masterminds, good ones. The members bring value to the group. They teach, they train, they contribute. But if you really look at it, and we're honest, they're the product. The people in the mastermind are the product. Not only do they pay a fee to have a ticket, a seat at the table, but then they bring the value of their connections and their referrals and other members, and and they really make it work. And I don't know that we've treated those people with their due respect. And so, if you start to break it down, I think there's a reform where we go from paying a fee to participate to actually having ownership in the groups that we collect, more of a collaborative is what I would call it. And it's not unlike REI or Costco at some level, Thrive Market. Others are examples, but what I'm envisioning going forward and what we're launching in a CXO alliance is a collective. And the idea is that the fee you pay actually buys you membership interest in the group and what the group produces together. And that's not unlike a country club or a fractional ownership of an airplane or a boat or something similar. You actually get equity in it, and you get a vote, and you get a voice. And so there's still fees to be paid to the people that organize it. There's still costs required to run it, of course, but it puts the power in the hands of the people who really are the product of the group itself. And then you get to start to do some interesting things. Like, think about collective buying groups. Go back to the Facebook example. Let's say there was still a course that you wanted to take about something like Facebook. Well, maybe instead of having the sponsor pay the mastermind owner a fee to speak on that stage, and then need to sell 10 people in the room effectively the same amount to justify his time, his energy, his talent, make a profit, sell what he does. What if the group could go out and have a committee that found the absolute best person that they're looking for to solve that problem and offer to pay them double what they would normally charge? And instead of charging a fee to get on the stage, and say the price of entry to my group could be a discount to my members. And you work more like a collaborative, or the collaborative buys the thing. Like one great example right now I see constantly, I'm heavily into tech, and as you know, big into AI, and we have everybody scrambling for what agentic systems do we want? What harnesses? Is it OpenClaw? Is it Hermie? Is it fill
Yes.
in the blank? And everybody's just all trying to figure it out. There's way too much information for everybody to stay ahead of. But if you're in a collective and you get groups that just, they get the very best, they understand what is the best harness, how do we use it, what do we do now? We build it and we give it to all the members, and the members get the benefit. So it's cost sharing. It's not fee paying. It is building equity in the group, so that when you invite other people into the group and the group grows and it becomes more powerful and it gets more leverage in the marketplace to acquire the things that are necessary for its members, it has better buying power, it gets better deals.
Yes.
You have value in that. And then if you do choose to leave, or if you're asked to leave because you don't provide the value of your time, your talent, and your treasure, this isn't about an economic play. This is about building the right group for you, tightly curated. Everybody signs off. Anybody could veto a new member into the group. The quality of the group is everything. And everybody's committed to the true mastermind concept, where if you're in the group, we're not going to do the typical 5-5-5 hot seats where you have 5 minutes to describe your problem or ask your question, 5 minutes for qualifying questions, 5 minutes for everybody to give an idea. And then everybody leaves with a stack of notes. Maybe they had their Plod pin running or whatever. They hope that they're going to transcribe it, figure it out, give it to their team, but nothing ever happens. Nothing gets done. You've been in these, right, Christine? You've seen what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Well, let's reimagine it. What if instead there's small groups, even within the larger group, and your commitment with the mastermind is, we're going to show up on a 3-day weekend for 6 people, and each person gets an entire half a day. And for a half a day, you go from start to completed thing, whatever it is. We're not going to give you advice. We're going to build it together. We're going to do the work. We're going to bring the resources.
I love this.
I think it's a time for a new model, because we have to learn faster. We have to execute better. And if we don't have that glue in that community to do it, we're all just lost. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm spending hours and hours and hours going through feeds, looking at what's the hot, LLM of the moment. What tools are we using? What methods are we using? How do we keep the competitive advantage? It's too much for any one person to keep track of. And there's no one guru at the front of the room that's going to give everybody the answer. Instead, there's going to be a guru who's going to sell the bright, shiny object of the moment, and he's going to pitch it in front of whatever guy let him on the stage. And that's going to get sold into their mastermind. And look, if it's an accelerator and they're helping people build things, that's great. And again, I want to be clear. Not every model is a bad model. Not every model is a bad mastermind. There is a place for these different models. I just don't think it's a real mastermind. I don't think it's what Napoleon Hill intended. And my belief is that this idea of a collective, of more of a co-op, is the new model, because you're building an asset. together. You can invest together. Imagine a group that solves the problem on, we know what's working in paid media. We know what's working with AI tools for creation, operations, ideation. And
Yeah.
now we've got a young person that wants to come in. They've got a great idea. We can pour into that person, take equity in his business, just like an incubator where I got my start, and almost like a little mini Y Combinator. And we
Yeah.
could give him our wisdom, all of the assets that we've figured out, all of the obstacles we've overcome, and help those new businesses get launched and started. So I
Mm.
think that's what I'm excited by, is how do we build a system that can dynamically coach its members, help its members get smarter, build that collective, not second brain, which everybody's trying to do in AI right now. It's like, how do I get my second brain and get everything dumped and work into it? Let's truly build the collective wisdom of a group into a system that
Mm.
serves the entire group. That's the big idea.
I'm so excited about this. There's so many points of pain that you're fixing with this model, but even just the true co-op model, which is, we are kind of equal investors in this business, the opportunity to be voted out, because frankly, I know of one particular mastermind that's just disintegrating from the inside out because of a bad apple. And it's so unfortunate. It's one bad apple that's just killing the whole thing. And it's so sad to watch. I know others where people are just so frustrated. They're like, we're learning such great things, but we don't actually have time to execute on them. And especially as people are trying to keep their teams lean, it is very much so predicated on how much you know, yes, but how much you do. And the doing, when it's in a collective group where we all get equity and we all get a piece of the pie. I love that concept, because another thought that I had years ago was, well, why don't we all talk about all these ideas together in this forum? Why don't we all just share in the businesses that are going to be created, and just raise your hand if you want to be a part of it? And so, Karl, I'm so thrilled for you, and I'm so excited about this, and I'm hopeful I can participate, because there's just so much that I know is going to make a real impact, especially when you've got people, and this is probably the piece that I get most excited about, when people are aligned on values and they see and hold a similar vision of how to make change, especially in this age of, we were talking beforehand of just how broken connection is and how broken people are, honestly, and really just being so lonely in an age where there's more connection opportunities than we know what to do with, and yet we're resorting to robots.
I
So
watched I watched people literally try to buy friends in masterminds, meaning they pay a fee to get in the group thinking that proximity is power. They'll build their relationships, and many do. I mean, there are certainly those people that can form relationships easier than others. I'm an introvert. I am scared of people. It's difficult for me to engage with humans unless I feel accepted, kind of got to get pulled in. And yeah, I think that for me, we need to break that pattern, because so many people have poured all kinds of money, time, and energy into something they have no ownership or equity
yeah,
in,
yes,
and there's no transparency. I mean, if you're an owner in a collective, the books are open. It's
yeah,
fully disclosed. You see what I'm making, what the team's getting paid to deliver, how the money's coming in, where the money's going out. There's no room for conflict of interest, for people doing things that aren't in alignment with the principles and values that you talk about for the group. And my guess is there'll be other collectives that are started, and we're actually trying to build an operating system for that, the sort of a collective operating system. So if you have a collective that's around a particular interest or something that's important, for which it could even be a very small
mhm,
group of people, they have the infrastructure necessary to execute on that model successfully and get the leverage that it's due. So the members really benefit, and it's going to rebalance power. I mean, we're not going to have
yes,
people that are at the front of large masterminds making, tens of millions of dollars, while the group struggles just to make it work, thinking they have to just keep paying, keep paying. One day they'll figure it out. Instead, they'll be owners with other owners who are in the shared journey with them, equally committed to helping each other achieve a goal as we go through the most formative transformation that history's ever seen, with everything
mhm,
going on with AI. And I think that's critically important, because here, Christine, here's a big idea.
hmm,
I honestly believe I've been working on a book. It comes out next month, second version, Hustle Doesn't Scale. And it's my story of how I thought hustle was the way, that I had to outwork the competition to be successful, but the opposite is true. But more importantly, that's been our culture. There's been a lot of gurus, a lot of people we all follow on Twitter and Instagram and all over, where they're just bragging about, it's Sunday, I got 6 meetings, look at me go, I'm a baller, and if you're not, you're a loser. And that's not going to work. You're not going to get the best people. Here's what AI is going to do. Most people think AI is going to destroy jobs. Some, it will. But if you pay attention to Javon's paradox is a great example. When ATMs came out, everybody thought it would be the end of the bank teller. But the reality was ATMs showed the power of proximity in smaller banks in remote locations. And now you got Chase Bank with small little satellite offices all over the place. The number of tellers went up. Uh, we have the same thing when, steam engines became more effective. Everybody thought coal is dead. You won't need as much of it, but coal went up. And now we're seeing it even with AI, where the first wave of AI, everybody said, you're going to destroy programmers. Programmers aren't required anymore because I can agentically code anything I want. SaaS companies are dead. Maybe SaaS companies are dead, but demand for programmers has gone up. So here's what's going to happen. AI is going to come out and transform the way we work and what we do. And if you're a team where you use AI correctly to buy back your team's time so that they get to spend all of their working time, or at least most of it, being creative and collaborative with each other, you're hiring the best people, A players who are collaborative individuals, and they get to be doing the creative work that AI just isn't good. AI has no taste, right? AI can't be creative. What's going to happen is you can buy back the time of your team so that they can get as much done in 4 days as they could in 5. If you're a smart business owner, you will give your team Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays off. And we're now entering an era where the best companies and their owners and their employees will make more and work less. So if you use AI right, if you build the systems and the processes to separate yourself from the tedious work, you spend more time creative and collaborative, where are the best employees going to go? They're going to go where that's a reality. And the small business owners that don't understand that are going to struggle to get good talent. And they'll be left with everything that's left. And that's where small business is going to break down, because we're not failing because we lack resources. We're failing because we're lacking resourcefulness and creativity. And the companies that are using these tools to amplify their creativity and their resourcefulness and to create better experiences for their teams and for their customers, they're the ones that are winning right now. So you're going to need to be in the room with people who think that way. You're going to need to be hearing how other business owners are giving their employees Fridays off. You're going to want to figure out what are the exact ways they're deploying various agentic frameworks. And by the way, it's the same framework for your business or my business or any other business. So we don't need a dozen things to pick through. We need to find the one that's working somewhere and everybody can adopt it. That's how we get speed in execution. That's how everything gets better. And that's how I think we make it safe for entrepreneurs going forward.
Karl, I'm so excited. We had talked about doing a part 2. I don't know if I can convince you to do that, because there's so much here that I think we could continue pulling on in terms of threads, but I'm mindful of the time for you.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to do a part 2 with us?
Maybe we just make the official launch on part 2. We haven't told anybody where to find it or what it is, but if you're up for it, since you broke the news, you got it out of me. You're really good. I did not expect this conversation today, but yeah, I would love that. That would be an honor.
Let's do that. That would be an honor for me. I'm so grateful for you, Karl. You've got on the show, we talk about these 4 intelligences and cultivating each one, and the importance of, kind of to use your example of, everyone is afraid that coal would effectively go out of style, and yet it got more expensive. We're afraid about the humans being out and left for dead, and yet I actually think they're going to be more expensive and be of more value than ever before. And so therefore we must cultivate ourselves. That is of utmost important. We are our own greatest asset. And it's just so apparent to me the work you have done. And so I'm very grateful for you being here. And I'm excited for part 2, and we can launch it. Let's do it.
I love that. Thank you, Christine. That was fun.
Thank you, Karl. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. Follow Karl on LinkedIn. And in the meantime, we will find a day. We'll go ahead and hop off here. We'll find a day and we'll schedule this out a couple days in advance so that you guys can know to tune back in. Now, this really is a pathway looking forward. And I'm so excited for you guys to be part of this kind of initial conversation. Karl, I have 4 questions that I was not able to get to. So I have saved them, y'all. Just be mindful that I have saved them. And I'd love to get to them in our part 2 conversation. So thank you, Karl.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Y'all, I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific for our daily show. And of course,